everyone, welcome back. Jana here with something really exciting to show you. I've completed my very first junk journal from scratch and I'm excited to do a little flip through for you and share with you what this book is all about. This book is inspired by a journal making course I took and is by far the most challenging crafting project I have ever taken on. But let me tell you, it is quite satisfying to finish something that you started with nothing, so I am quite excited to share with you now. Before I go into the many layers of the cover, I just wanted to show you the spine. The spine has got a fabric base, then some more fabric attached to it, and then a piece of lace that I have used to cover up the stitching from attaching the signatures to the spine. This second layer here plays a role in attaching the back cover to the spine as well, because I used it as a hinge to do that, and I show you what that means in a moment. So for the front cover, it has got many layers to it and a little surprise on the back of the last layer. Here we've got a little collage with some embossing, die cuts and this floral focal point. Over here on the back I've got a little fabric flap and I have collaged some pianola paper. I love how this pianola paper has aged and the beautiful cream color it got, so I've used it quite a lot throughout the whole book. Over here I've got a piece of muslin which is used as a fabric hinge to connect these pieces together. Moving on to another collage, this is a digital printable that I printed out onto coffee stain paper, some embossed paper. I've got an embossing machine now too and I love the texture it gives. So I have used embossed pieces of paper for decoration throughout the whole book, and I've got some more pianola paper here, and this is a little belt I created from fabric and stitched onto the sides. Moving on, I've got another digital download printed out on coffee stain paper, another hinge, and then I've got this floating pocket which is also a journaling card, and I added that in here because I'd created this collage and I stitched it onto the page which was already covered by fabric, and I'm not quite sure I love how it came out, so I came up with this little tuck spot from embossed paper that I could use to tuck something on top of the bits I didn't quite like, so I think that worked out quite great. I've got a piece of lace here, and the idea for this is to peek through when you close the book and add to that beautiful layered aesthetic that I love so much. Now here is the little surprise. On the back of the last portion of the front cover we've got another journal. It's a mini journal. Let me just put something underneath here. It's a mini journal with its own front and back covers, and the front cover is a piece of embossed paper that I cut a little rectangle into and added some tracing paper on the back, and that created a see-through pocket. Tuck something in here and you will still be able to see what that something is. I love that effect and it makes me smile. Over here I've got some crackling paste through a stencil to give me these beautiful flowers, some music paper distressed with cream acrylic for some more interest. I've added a ruffle here on the side. There's some more collage, another fabric hinge, and for the inside of the mini journal I've got just a few papers to add some journaling space. This beautiful die cut edge on coffee stain paper. I've got a little piece of fabric here, some music paper, some more journaling space, some coffee stain paper, and I added a few roses in cream acrylic paint here, and then we've got the rest of the folded pages here. So for the back cover of the little journal, I've got another collage with a digital download onto coffee stain paper and some fabric, and the fabric ruffle that I created and added as a top, and that is the back cover of the mini journal, which is attached to the front cover. So that brings us to the heart of the junk journal. I want to use this junk journal as an actual art journal, so I have chosen a variety of papers that will inspire me to do that. I've got mixed media paper, watercolor paper, sketchbook paper, some craft paper. My intention with this is to give myself a variety of surfaces that I can do different things into this beautiful book. Over here I've got a little fabric duck spot, and then there's once again this beautiful die cut on mixed media paper throughout the whole book. The color scheme I have worked with is creams and the whites. Is very subtle with minimal decoration, because I want to be able to open this book and go ahead and create something I have in mind and not worry about matching that color scheme to something I've already got going on the page. There are very few colorful decorations across this book, and I have relied on layering to give me some visual interest and texture. I've got some music paper here with one of the very few colorful elements in this book. This is a little ruffle I created and sewed onto the edge. For some of the pages that are a little bit too big to go into a small book like this one, I like to fold over the bottom part, and that creates a little pocket. Over here I've got some mixed media paper which has been coffee stained, and I've got this see-through duck spot that I have sewn onto the page. Here, the next page, I have decorated with a lace die cut. This is just some cardstock paper, and I've got a piece of decorative paper on top to give it a bit more interest. Now you will see that throughout this book I have used very few patterned papers or scrapbooking papers, because I really wanted to keep it fairly neutral and easy to create in going forward. Over here I've got some crafting paper, and I have created a little belt from scrap pieces sewn together. It goes like that. And for decoration I die cut this corner edge here, and I glued it onto the following page to give a little bit more decoration to this side as well. I have used some cream acrylic paint to distress some of the pages to give them a bit more visual interest. This over here is a regular bullet journal paper that I ripped out of the bullet journal and coffee stained. When I ripped it out, that created a few bigger holes over here, so I reinforced it with a piece of floral washi tape. That would make it a bit stronger later when I stitched the pages together and then attached the whole signature to the spine. Some more digital download onto coffee stained paper, a bit of embossed paper used as a tab, and some cream color roses that I added with a stencil and acrylic paint. Some more music paper over here. I love using music paper as background for collaging, so I've got quite a few music paper sheets across this junk journal. Over here, this is a piece of wallpaper that I used to back up a collage with some more leftover pieces. I had to add stitching to keep it all together because the glue I was using was not strong enough to keep the textured pieces in place, but it works quite well this way and I'm happy how it came out. Over here I've got some sketchbook paper and I added a stamp for a bit of vintage script charm, but I placed it upside down. Anyway, it still works. There is some lace on top to serve as a tab and some washi tape to reinforce the base of this page. Over here I've just added some cream paper to distress the edges, And for this page here, it is partially embossed, so I embossed a bit of it, and then for the rest of the page, which was too big to go into the book, I folded over and created another pocket. I've got a little tab on the side, and for this one it's just a ruffle that I created from muslin, and then these cream colored roses that I used a stencil to add on to the page. Moving on, I've got some pianola paper. I added it for decorative purposes actually, because I love the color and I love the punched edges and the little punch pieces throughout the pianola paper. It can be quite fragile. I'm not sure I could use it for painting or collage, but drawing maybe. We'll see what I'll do with it. And then I've got some more sketchbook paper reinforced with washi tape. And this bit here, this is a coffee stained mixed media page, and I love the effect I got here. I don't know how I got it though. None of the other pages which were part of this batch got this effect. So yeah, I need to experiment a little bit more to see how I can get that once again. But I kept it as the center page for my junk journal. From here on now, everything you see will be just the other side of the paper that was folded over in order to go onto the book. I've added very minimal decoration, just a few bits and pieces here and there, mainly fabric. I've got a ruffle going on down here. Then some more of the pianola paper. Because it is so fragile, I had to fold it in half in order to give it more structure, and then I sealed the bottom with some masking tape and added a little bit of decorative paper as a tab. I also added this die cut here for a bit more interest. Moving on, I've got another fabric tab over here at the top, and for this side of the embossed page, it's also got a pocket inside here, but I used some washi tape in order to seal it, so that gives it a little bit more decoration. I've got another fabric tab on the side here, and then I've got a coloring book page, and I love going over these botanical illustration designs with the fine liner, so that's what I'm going to do for this page. On the back here, there's just another beautiful botanical illustration and the back of my scrap collage piece that was sewn onto some wallpaper. Moving on, some more of these acrylic roses that I added with the stencil, and for this tiny little page here I've got this big tub, and first of all I love how the embossed bit looks. It's just so aesthetic to me. When I close the book I can still see some of it peeking through, so that adds to the layered aesthetic that I love so much, and I love how that looks. Some more digital download printed onto coffee stained paper, my bullet journaling paper which has been coffee stained, some more music paper, and over here at the bottom I wanted to add some dimension with modeling paste, but for some reason it just came out all wrong and I decided to wipe it off the page, so that's what gave it this effect. We're going to pretend we did it on purpose. I actually love how that looks, so it's not too bad at all. I think that saved it. Now over here, this is my first attempt to add this effect from here, the roses in crackle paste, to add that effect onto craft paper. But I think because the craft paper is so smooth, when the crackle paste dried out it crumbled off the page completely. So I went over it with just a little bit of acrylic paint, and I think that saved it, so it looks quite cool. Over here on this page I've got a little tuck spot. It goes like that, and another tuck spot down here which I've decorated with some more embossed paper. Moving on, another pocket from music sheet, and then for this tiny little page here I've got this big tub, and that's because when I was doing my stenciled flowers I had too much acrylic paint out and I didn't want it to go to waste and just dry up on the page. So I just stenciled a few scrap bits and pieces I had lying around my desk. This is one of them, and I turned it into a square tub, and my intention is, once again, when you close the book, that will peek through and add another layer of interest to the whole book. And then for this little piece of mixed media paper, I've got a ruffle on the top, and that is the end of the heart of the junk journal, and it brings us to the back cover. The back cover was an interesting experiment for me. I did not know you could emboss fabric. So I don't know if you can tell, but there is beautiful 3D embossing on this cover, and I have left it as a fabric sheet into my junk journal, and let's see what I'll make of it. I'm not sure yet, but it will be interesting to find out. On the back here I've got some wallpaper, and this is, if you can recognize the pattern from the spine, this is a little hinge I left from the spine. When I attached it together to the spine base, I left this bit a little bit longer, and then I used glue to attach these back portions to the spine of the book, and that worked quite well. Over here I've got another fabric pocket and some sewing on the side. Now this page here, this is a fabric swatch page, and you can see these little bits and pieces of fabric that I have glued onto the base. And for the base I used a watercolor painting of mine that I didn't quite like, but it is still very good heavyweight watercolor paper, and I knew I could reuse it for my junk journal, and it would be good with all the glue and stitching I added. So moving on to this pocket page here, it is covered in pianola paper. I've got some decorative stitching on the side, which is not my best work, but yet again, it's one of my very first few attempts. So I just include it in this book to remind me of that moment. I've got some floral decoration here and a few bits of embossed paper to give it a bit more dimension and interest. Moving on, I've got this cream colored cardstock that I embossed just a little bit of it. I added this fabric pocket on the bottom and some of that script stamp. Then over here, this little hinge helps bind these two portions together. I've got a little collage over here with music paper, which I distressed with a bit darker acrylic paint this time. And for the back cover, I've got another collage with digital download printed on coffee paper, some music paper, and a little bit more embossing. So that is my junk journal. I am so excited to turn it into an art journal and actually come back in and start creating on those beautiful pages. I've got so many craft projects planned in order to make ephemera for this book, and stay tuned for that if this kind of videos inspire you. Thanks for watching this one, and I'll catch you in my next one.